The Detroit Pistons are first in the Eastern Conference, and the only team that has more wins than them is OKC Thunder. And a lot of talk around OKC is, can they break the single-season win record? The talk around the Pistons, should it be, can they break 60 wins this year?
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Khahil. I've been covering the Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years, been a credentialed media member over the last 3 years, and I appreciate all of you guys who make Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I also want to thank you guys for helping make Locked On Sports Network, the sports podcast network, the #1 sports podcast network in America. I appreciate all of your guys' support, and I know the rest of my colleagues do as well. And today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Today we're recording a mailbag episode. If you want to be included on the next mailbag episode, leave a comment, whether it be in the YouTube comment section, whether it be over on Twitter, or whether it's on the comments over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. If you want to be a part of the next mailbag, which we're going to start trying to do maybe once a week, again, find any of those ways to leave a question. I'll make sure I answer it in a future video. Later on, we'll talk about one of the questions being, should the Pistons trade for Michael Porter Jr.? And are there any small moves that the Detroit Pistons can make this season before the trade deadline that would be better than swinging for the fences? We'll talk about that a little later. But let's start with the first question we have asked from someone over on Twitter. They ask, should the Pistons have, and they're asking this when the Pistons are 21-5, at this point in the season, barring any major injuries, would you consider it a disappointment if the Pistons don't win 60 games? This question is from Kurt Zamora on Twitter. I think that the Pistons' objective, I'm going to view this question as what their expectation is. And when you say disappointment, I'm assuming, okay, they should be expected to do this, and if they don't, we're going to be mad. I would say the Pistons' expectation for me at this point in the season, I think, is to secure a top 3 seed in the East. You're 21-5. You have a 2.5 game lead right now on the Knicks. You have a 5.5 game lead on the third place team, which is the Toronto Raptors. We know that the Eastern Conference is not that strong right now. I've seen some people try and make the argument that the middle of the East is actually pretty strong. There's just not a lot of top end talent, which is fair. I think a lot of people probably would say the top contenders are in the West, though maybe the East you can say is maybe a little bit more jam packed in the middle. I don't even know if I agree with that, but either way, the East is wide open. With that said, the Pistons, like you mentioned, Kurt, the Pistons have had a lot of good injury luck, and knock on wood, we're gonna hope that continues to be the case. But you always have to keep in mind that maybe something may pop up where someone misses 4 to 5 games. So that could hurt them. That's one. 2, New York is starting to play extremely well and is really on the Pistons' heels. They're playing really great basketball. So they're trying to get to this 1 seed as well. And then if Tatum comes back, the Celtics are going to be up there. But with the lead the Pistons have built, I would say top 3 seed is my expectation. They don't have to hit 60 wins. 60 wins is pretty incredible. You get to 60 wins, that's pretty crazy. If they were able to do that, that'd be amazing. But the teams last year to hit 60 wins, you only had 3 teams do it. Cleveland, Boston, and OKC. Those are the only 3 teams that hit 60 wins last season. You go to 2 seasons ago, there's only 1 team that hit 60 wins. That's Boston. So 60 wins is I think a little bit too steep to put. If they don't hit 60 wins, we're disappointed. I think that would be a little too far. I think it's fair to say they should be a top 3 seed. They should have home court advantage, and they shouldn't fall too far from the 1 seed. If they stay at the 1 seed, I think that's perfectly possible too. I think it's possible for them to get the 1st seed by winning 55, 56 games. But 60, meet me in February. Hit me in February, and then I'll talk about winning 60 games. But until then, that's pretty hard. just to give an idea of where the Pistons rank currently across the NBA when talking about winning 60 games, they're 5th in net rating. They have the 9th best offense in basketball. They have the 3rd best defense in basketball. They are the 11th most efficient team when it comes to true shooting percentage. They've been, obviously, one of the few top 10 teams in both offense and defense. So they've been spectacular. We all understand this. Just 60 games, that's a lot. Every team usually runs into like a rough spot, whether it just be a 3-game losing streak, whatever it may be. Every team usually hits a spot, unless you're OKC Thunder. You hit a spot where it's like, okay, they're in a little bit of a lull. They got to get past this and they'll be fine. So I don't even think we've seen that yet from the Pistons. So I'd say I expect them to win 55 games, 54 games. I think that's where I think they're going to end up. If they go above it, fantastic, though. All right, let's get to the next question here. This is a fun one. This is just a fun one to wrap up the segment real quick. Sean Murphy. You guys can find him over on YouTube as well. He does a nice podcast from Half Court. We've had him on the podcast before. He asked a fun question. You're stuck in an escape room, and the only way you get out is by the help of 3 Piston players if you're choosing. Who's getting you out of the escape room? So I've never done an escape room, so I don't know if it's like just about you need like super strong, you need some people to get you out of there, or if it's like smarts or whatever. So I'll pick Stu because it's Stu. I'll pick Duncan because if it's like smarts, kind of connecting the dots kind of thing, I'll take Duncan. And then the last person I'll pick. Let's do JD. JD, Stu, and Duncan. I think those 3 will get me out of an escape room, and I think I'd be in pretty good health. I think I'd be fine. Let me know. I've never really done an escape room. I don't even really know what goes on in an escape room. So if I completely misjudge that, let me know in the comments. And then the last question I guess we'll answer. Here's another one. This one's from Do It Effortless on YouTube. Says, should Javonte Green play more? Should Caris LeVert be in the rotation right now? Javonte Green is playing the right amount of minutes right now. I think it's going to be hard to get him consistent rotation minutes if I was the coach. But the minutes he's getting right now, I think is perfectly fine, especially when he's playing as well as he did this past game. I don't think you need to play him anymore. The Pistons have enough players they need to play. You can't play everybody. So I think he's playing perfectly fine. Should Caris LeVert be in the rotation? Absolutely. People are being way too harsh on Caris LeVert. I think he's been really good at times. He's had a few rough moments, but he's also had a lot of really good moments. And he's been a part of the team playing really well in the clutch at times. Like, he's had quite a few clutch buckets, quite a few clutch performances that have really won the Pistons the game. And he's really fit with Cade as well. I think the problem with Caris right now, which we've talked about a lot, is that Caris and Ivy don't play well together. Now that Ivy's back, you got to play him a lot of minutes, and that's going to come with playing him some minutes with Caris. Now, in the second half of this past game against Boston, they played much better together. So maybe that's a sign for things to change moving forward. But Caris, he's been good. He's been better than I thought he would be, and he's really delivered for them in some really key moments. So, he absolutely should be in the rotation. He should be one of the guys getting the most minutes in the rotation, off the bench, I should say. But coming up, a lot of questions, a lot of trade questions, and one of them was circling around, should the Pistons trade for Michael Porter Jr.? Today's episode is brought to you by Skims. When Skims announced they were making underwear for men, the reaction made perfect sense. People have been talking about Skims comfort for years. Most guys, though, stick to whatever they've been buying since college, and that includes myself. The same fits, the same waistbands that roll, and a whole lot of settling. Skims Men's changes that. One upgrade, and it's obvious why everyone's been talking. What stood out right away was the fit and the fabric. Soft, supportive, and comfortable all day. They don't ride up, they don't lose their shape, and they hit exactly where they're supposed to on the thigh. I honestly didn't expect underwear to be a game changer, but Skims completely surprised me. Shop Skims Men's now at skims.com, and when you place your order, choose podcast in the post-purchase survey and select our show from the drop-down menu to let them know that we sent you. Plus, the Skims holiday shop is open now, so if you're looking for the perfect gifts this season, Skims has you covered. Shop Skims Men's now at skims.com. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free to available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast, and you already live your team every day, now take it up a level and go ad-free with Locked On Pistons. You guys are done listening to the ads. You can join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Pistons with no interruptions and a members-only Discord that's been pretty fun, pretty active. We can all have a big community over there. You guys can talk during the games. It's a lot of fun. For just $5 a month, you can go to lockedonpistons.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes down below to learn more. All right, let's get to the next set of questions. I'm not going to point out any singular person with this question because we've had a lot of people, I think like 5 or 6 questions asked about, should the Pistons trade for Michael Porter Jr.? What would a trade look like for Michael Porter Jr.? All of that. So I'm just going to throw all of your guys' questions into one and answer it here. So if you were one of the people who asked about Michael Porter Jr., I saw your question. I'm answering it here. Do I think the Pistons should be looking into trading for Michael Porter Jr.? Yes. I tweeted this out yesterday, and I've been talking about this on the podcast for weeks. Actually, really months, going months into the offseason. The Pistons' biggest need for this team is they need a 4 that is a high-volume three-point shooter. They need a 4-man that is a threat when he's on the floor beyond the arc. When he's on the floor and behind the arc, that the defense is like, oh, my God, we got to pay attention. We can't lose him. He has to be accounted for here. And you saw when Boston went to his own, and you've seen when other teams go to his own, this is a problem they run into with Tobias. And I saw one of you guys, I forget who it was, and shout out to whoever it was, but someone commented on the YouTube video yesterday and was like, I witnessed Tobias miss his first 3 threes, and I watched, like you said, and saw that he just was hesitant to take threes after that. And we saw Boston continue to go to the zone, and it be effective. That is one of the reasons. Now, we talked about it last episode, the other reasons why. Asar and JD often were running into the same spots. When you're running 2 non-shooters against a zone, you can get away with it, especially when one of them's a ball handler, and create open looks, but you have to be disciplined and precise with your spacing and when to be at certain spots. They were that against Portland. They were that against Milwaukee. They were not that against Boston this past game in the first half. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is that when outside of Duncan Robinson, they don't have anyone else that's on the floor that as soon as they catch the ball or when they go to flare out to the corner or flare out to the wing, they don't have anyone that is causing the defense to be like, oh my God, we have to get to him. Or, even better, they don't have someone that when you kick it out to them and they have even a sliver of space, because the zone is all about finding gaps and you're going to have little windows. If you kick it out to them, or is letting it go instantly, and that's a good look for them. Tobias doesn't want to get those shots up. Tobias doesn't really want to shoot threes. He wants to post up. He wants to get to his midi. He wants to get to that 10-foot area and get shot up like that. He doesn't want to give up 6 threes a game. Like, he doesn't want to get those type of shots up. And in those little windows that teams give up in zones, he doesn't have a good enough shot or enough confidence in his shot like that to just raise up and go on those type of shots. That's not who he is. For the Pistons playing Asar and JD together, they need a guy that is like that. They have one in Duncan. They need another one at the 4 position that provides that same level of gravity as a shooter. And that is something absolutely Michael Porter Jr. would be able to do. He is one of the best shooters in the NBA. Honestly, when you look at the numbers, he's one of the better shooters we've ever seen, to be honest, especially for his position. At the volume and the efficiency on the shots, one of the best shooters we've seen. So he fits the bill 100%. That's one. 2, he's having an absolute fantastic season for the Brooklyn Nets right now. And he's having a better season than Cam Johnson did when he went to Brooklyn. They made him, quote-unquote, the first option. He's having a better season than Mikal Bridges did when he went to Brooklyn, was the quote-unquote first option. I think there's an argument to be made that he's having a better season than Lauri Markkanen's having over in Utah. He's averaging 25 and a half a game, 7.3 rebounds, 3.2 assists. And when you're watching MPJ this year, he's making some passing reads that I never thought that he'd be able to make. I've seen him make multiple lob reads to Nicholas Claxton coming down off a pick and roll that I just didn't think was even close to in his bag. He's making kickouts to the corner that I've never seen him make before in my life. Like, he's making passing reads while also being insanely efficient. He's shooting 59% on 2s while taking a career high amount of 2-pointers. He's shooting 40% on 3s while taking 9 threes a game. He's hyper efficient, 63 true shooting. He's been amazing for the Brooklyn Nets. So I think he fits the bill. I think he absolutely fits the bill for what the Pistons need at the 4 position. So Should they be interested in him? I think so. What would a trade look like, or could they even trade for him, was the other part of the questions that were asked. And for that, you have to go, I think, to his contract first, obviously. What does his contract look like? Are you putting on long-term heavy dollars? Well, with MPJ's contract, you're not. He's only getting paid $38 million this year, and then $40 million the next year, and that's it. He's 38 this year, $40 million the next year, and then after that, he's a free agent at 29 years old. At that point, you have a short-term contract that's flexible, and it's not as expensive as some of the other guys that are, rumored to be on the trade block that we've heard the Pistons name connected to and not connected to apparently now. It's not that crazy of a contract, and it's very short-term. It's not long-term money. And it allows you, after the 26-27 season, to make a decision on, okay, would we want to bring him back? We can re-sign him for lower dollars. Or do you walk into the 26-27 season and be like, okay, this is a big contract. We want to move off of it. We want to package it with something else to get something else we need. It's an expiring $40 million contract for a really good player. You also would have that flexibility in there. And we know that Trajan really values, Trajan Langdon that is, we know that he very much values having flexibility with his moves that he makes. He wants to be able to have another move after the move he's made. He wants to be able to do those kind of things. And going after an MPJ's contract, I think would allow you to do so. It's not long-term dollars, short-term contract, and allows you, especially with an expiring next year, to move it if you'd like to. So that's first thing you got to look at. I think the contract's good. I think it's a good contract situation. The next question is, what would a trade look like? So I drafted up a trade here, and I think from what I believe the Pistons would be willing to part with for MPJ, I don't think the Nets would take for MPJ. So I think that's going to end up becoming the problem. That would be the problem. As I think the Brooklyn Nets are going to try to tax a team for MPJ, much like they taxed the team for Mikal Bridges. They're going to try and get away with the fleece by moving MPJ for 3-4 first-round picks. Now, it's going to be interesting because all the reports we're getting from all the insiders is that no team is willing to trade multiple first-round picks this year. No one wants to trade 3 first-round picks no more. No one wants to trade even – teams are hesitant to trade 2 first-round picks, apparently, because of the new apron and because of the new CBA stuff. They're hesitant to do that unless you're talking about a bona fide superstar. And MPJ, while he's having a great season, is obviously not that. So I don't know if Brooklyn's going to be able to pull off the heist they think they're going to get. However, this is the trade I crafted up that I think the Pistons would be willing to do, and I'd be interested to see if Brooklyn would even pick up the phone on this. The trade I drafted up is Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, and a first-round pick. 2026 first-round pick for MPJ. That's what I think the Pistons would offer for MPJ. I don't think Brooklyn would take that deal. So that's what I think a trade would look like. I asked Locked On Nets about this trade. He said he doesn't think that's enough. He thinks they're going to want a lot more than that. And personally, I don't think the Pistons should give a lot more than that. Just because MPJ is having a great season, I don't think you allow the Nets to then fleece you. And again, like I just mentioned earlier, you should be really hesitant to give up multiple future picks and a lot of maybe player assets as well in this CBA unless you're getting a star. And again, while MPJ is having a great year, he's not a superstar. So to answer that question, it was a long-winded way of answering. Would I be interested in MPJ? 100%. Should the Pistons be interested in MPJ? Yeah, they should be interested. They should call about it, see what it looks like. Would he fit what the Pistons need? I think 100%. Would he be a great fit? I think so. Is his contract good? I think so. Would they be actually able to pull off a trade? I don't know. That's when it gets tough. That's when it gets, I think it would be tough to actually pull a trade off that would make Brooklyn want to pull the trigger on actually sending him out. But I'd like to hear from you guys. Would you guys trade for MPJ? And what would the trade look like for you guys? What would you be willing to move with for MPJ? What would you guys be willing to move off of for MPJ? Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil on that. And then there was another question. Actually, we'll save this one for coming back from the break. This is a question about apparently a trade that was floated out on the Game 3 podcast, that's Sam Vecini and Bryce Simon's podcast, concerning Trey Murphy. I'll tell you guys whether I would do this trade that they floated out coming back. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. Prices include fees up front, which I love, no last-second surprises at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off with Game Time. Now I've got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors. This one is Robinhood, the new gold standard. You can sign up now at Robinhood.com/gold. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do, locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again, and channeling that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney, your money, your move with Robinhood. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And we're going to wrap up today's mailbag episode with a question concerning Trey Murphy and then a few other questions from some other listeners asking about maybe a smaller move that the Pistons could make before the trade deadline. But let's start with the trade idea that apparently was floated out on the Game Theory podcast by Bryce Simon and Sam Vecini. I was tweeted about this by, I just lost the name, by Detroit Sports Fan on Twitter, asked, would you do Jay and Ivy plus Ron Holland and 2 firsts for Trey Murphy? So let's just break it down. I'm going to do the same breakdown I did with MPJ. Does Trey Murphy fit what the Detroit Pistons need? I would say yes. I think he fits what they need. He would be really good. I think he's one of the better fits in the team in the league for what they need. A 6'8" forward, not as big as I'd like the 4-man to be, but 6'8", has a good size, decent size, I would say. A good 3-point shooter, not as good of a 3-point shooter, but a good 3-point shooter. Shoots 36%, 7.5 attempts. 61% this year on all twos. He's averaging 21, 6.5, and 3.5 on the season. Shooting 90% from the free throw line. Incredibly efficient. Having a good season. He's a really good player. A good offensive player. Not as good defensively as I once thought he could be, but a really good offensive player. 25 years old. Would he fit the team? Yes, I do. Now, let's move on to his contract. What's his contract look like? It's one of the best contracts in the NBA, which is why I think it's going to be really hard to get Trey Murphy from the New Orleans Pelicans, because they are going to tax you. He is one of the best contracts. They know that value. They know how viable it is, so they're going to ask for a lot. He's under contract for 4 years, which initially you may think, oh, God, that's a lot of money for 4 years. Well, he's not getting paid a lot at all. I mean, literally at all. He's getting paid $25 million this year, $27 million the next year, $29 million at 27 years old, and $31 million at 28. In 2028, 2029, when the cap's going to be way crazy higher, and you're going to see guys that are way worse than him getting paid $35, $36 million by that point, he's going to be making $31 million. His contract is one of the best contracts in the league. The only other contract that instantly comes to my head that's really this good is Denny Advias. Another one that's just great. So, Trey Murphy, is his contract worth taking? Absolutely. It's one of the best in the league. So, with all that said, is he worth going after? I would say yes. I think the Pistons should call New Orleans and ask about Trey Murphy. Now, would I trade Jay and Ivy, Ron Holland, and 2 firsts for Trey Murphy? Part of the reason why you hear, I'm assuming, I didn't listen to the podcast that they did, but I'm assuming that the reason why you see Ivy, Holland, and 2 firsts, because you don't need a big salary matcher with Trey Murphy, because he's not a high contract. When you go after guys like Lauri Markkanen or MPJ or any of these other like high, Anthony Davis, another guy that's been floated out, whatever. Like these big contract guys, you have to include Tobias because you need to match the salaries. Because Trey Murphy's contract is so small, you don't need to include Tobias. And I'm pretty sure that New Orleans wouldn't even want that. Like they don't want that coming back because his cap is so small. His cap hit so small. They don't want something like that back. They just want assets. That's all they need. They don't need a matching contract. They don't need a vet. They're just going to want assets coming back. I don't think I would do Ivy, Holland, and 2 first. I'm reluctant to move off of Holland. Now, I'm trying when people include Ron in trades, I'm trying not to be the fan and the person that I always say other people are when it's like, oh, would you trade a star for LeBron James? Yes, I would trade. Like, I'm not trying to be one of those ones where it's like, oh, we're overvaluing our young players where you won't trade them for an obviously better player. Like, why wouldn't you? You're overvaluing your young guy. I'm trying not to do that. So I'm listening to it, but I really don't know if I would trade Ron for this because I am high on his future. Now, I understand that when you make a move like this, like the bigger picture here is, I'm sure they probably brought this up, is there ever a future where you can play Ron, Asar, and Duren together? And when you're making trades like this, I'm sure that's definitely one of the things that's like in your head. We love them right now, and we don't. I'm not saying to move any of them. I would be okay just not moving any of them right now at all. But when you talk about doing trades like this, that's definitely one of the things that come up. Okay, would you ever see these players being able to play together? And if not, would this player that you're trading for be a better fit with them and elevate them? So I get it. I just would. I don't know. I don't think I'm ready to move Holland for a guy like Trey Murphy that I'm not as high on anymore. Like, if it was a better player, I would listen to it more. I'd be more interested in doing so. I just don't, I'm not as high on Trey Murphy anymore. Like, last year, I was really high on him, but I don't think his defense is quite as good as maybe from the outside perspective I thought it could get to. I've watched him a little bit more. I don't really like his defensive ability. He's not as big, like I mentioned earlier, as you maybe would most want at the 4 position. He doesn't shoot the 3 quite as good as you want him to. He's a good 3-point shooter, and that is something he will do. He will get 3s up. Like the stuff we talked about with Tobias earlier, he will let it fly. So that, I'm not saying he's not a good 3-point shooter. He is. He's just not as good of one as maybe I would like. He's definitely a good option, though. I'm not saying I wouldn't take him. I definitely would love to have him. But if I'm giving up Ron, I would rather go after a bigger fish. So I don't think I would do this. I would trade Ivy 2 firsts and like something else to get the salary up. Like if you could throw like Caris in there, like I would do something like that. But then obviously New Orleans would never take that. They're going to want multiple of the young guys and some picks. So I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and disrespect and be like, oh, that's a crazy trade offer. I do think I think it's probably closer to a fair value trade than I'm giving it credit for. I would just be hesitant to move Ron right now for anything less than like a bona fide star. If I'm moving Ron, if I'm moving Ron Holland, I'm going after a star by attaching multiple picks to him. Because at that point, that means I'm going for a big fish. If I'm moving Ron, it's because I'm making the final move and I know what this team needs. So therefore, I'm willing to give up anything to go get what I want. That's how I view. If the Pistons ever were to reach the point of we're trading Ron Holland, it's because, okay, we know what we need and we're willing to attach anything to Ron to try to get this big fish. That's the only way I probably would trade Ron right now. But I don't think it's a crazy trade. I just wouldn't do it. The other question I had was from Asar Pick and Roll on Twitter. It says, what small pickup wouldn't cost too much you think Trajan will make to help this team? This is going to be a bailout question, so I'm sorry. But if I had to guess right now, I don't think Trajan is going to make a trade. I think he's going to ride it out this year. I think it's likely the Pistons just don't do anything, and they just wait and see how the team looks in the offseason. I think that's probably where we're heading right now. Again, I'm in the camp of go make a deal for a 4. The East is wide open. You can win the East this year. That's what I would do. But I think everything we're hearing from Trajan and some of the reports that have come out from Mark Stein that suggested that people are hearing that they're more likely to not make a big move. I think you're looking at a team not doing much of anything this year when it comes to making acquisitions, and then next offseason, maybe they make a move. Maybe they don't even make a move next offseason. I don't know. But Trajan obviously has made it clear he's not too aggressive and doesn't want to take many risks, which, look, it's gotten them to 21-5. They're first in the East, so it's worked. But, yeah, I don't think he's going to make any moves. Another question, these are some quick hitters I can hit from the YouTube channel. This one's from Big Steve O. Should Asar be moved to the bench in favor of a more developed offensive player? Absolutely not. That's a crazy question. Next question is from Happy Sunday. Do you believe that Duncan Robinson has brought life into this team, or brought this team to life? I do. Duncan's been tremendous. He's been way better than anyone could have possibly imagined. He's been fantastic. He's having a crazy good three-point shooting season, and the playmaking and ability to drive closeouts, drive DHOs, and make decisions off of them is really unlocking a different part of the Pistons half-court offense. I'll end it off with the Pistons are 9.0 points better with Duncan on the floor. They are 9 points better with him on the floor versus off. So not only are they winning his minutes by 9, they are 9 points better with him on versus off. He's been tremendous. Next question from Dylan says, how are you feeling about all the Anthony Davis rumors? The Pistons aren't trading for Anthony Davis. Not happening. And last question from Aaron says, do you still feel like the Pistons shouldn't have extended during this offseason? Yeah, I think that was the smart move. I think, obviously, looking now, you think you're going to have to pay him the max, but rumors had it that before the season, Duren wanted the max anyways. So I don't think the Pistons lost out on any money. It sounds like Duren wasn't accepting anything less than the max anyways already. So if that's where he was at, it's not like you're going to end up paying more unless he makes All-NBA. And as good of a season as Duren has had, he's not making I'd be shocked if he's an All-NBA guy. But so I don't know how much money the Pistons would have saved if they agreed to what Duren wanted before the season, opposed to what they're going to end up paying him at the end of the year. So I don't know. We'd have to find out what exactly he would have taken before the year. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there, and peace out, everybody.